Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcana episode 55. This week, we're going to be talking about the meta breakdown for Chicago, updates in the set for metagame, upcoming tournaments. We have an upcoming tournament. How do you pronounce this European city? Is it Bochum? Is that how you say it?
Bochum.
All right, so that one, which they're doing a very interesting tournament structure for. We'll get into that. We also had some news in regards to Pixelborn, which I'm sure a lot of you were surprised that we didn't talk about in the previous week's episode. That news dropped right after we finished recording. I did pin a comment giving a little bit of update from us. Basically, our take on it is that we are sad to see it go. We all obviously utilize that software to test and play the game quite a bit at this point. But we do not plan to let it impact the podcast and the weekly uploads at the very least. There's also been additional updates on top of that in regards to a sort of MTG spell table derivative. So basically Pixelborn, but with webcams, ranked play, pretty much all of the sort of the facilities you're used to while playing Pixelborn in the online client going to a webcam and sort of in-paper client. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how it's executed. I'm ultimately excited for it. I played a lot of webcam-based games in the past, like Flesh and Blood did this in the beginning. It's clunky. It has its faults. You know, there's a lot of it's really, really clunky, to be honest. But ultimately, I had a good time. Like, that was some of the most fun I had playing Flesh and Blood. Was like back in the day, they would do these skirmishes online. I remember me and the boys, we'd hop in these like tournaments. We get on Discord at like 6 a.m. We play these 12-hour tournaments, you know, just these massive tournaments and just grind all the way through. And it was just, those are really the golden days for me. I don't think this is going to be that, but I will say that I am optimistic at the least. I want to pass over to you guys to get y'all's thoughts on this, because I don't even think we've had a chance to talk about it really.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Everything Pavel's done is clear, has been amazing for the community. In regards to the webcam stuff, I know a lot of people already in the comment section are probably going to be like, "Oh, but like, how do you stop cheating from happening and all this type of stuff?" So you don't. It's going to happen. The best things that will probably be put in place to try and prevent it is that I assume that you'll have to show your hand at all times. But as Moyen showed myself and Brendan a few weeks ago, you know, there could always be a dude hiding under your desk, passing a card up into your hand. So, you know, you can't stop that from happening. But
yeah, those One Piece players are hiding they're like their trap cards in their prison wallet, just fucking flipping them out. It's cheating.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the saddest thing about it, obviously, it's the whole card accessibility thing, because like I'm interested because Moyen, I know you have a lot of cards now, or I would say a lot of cards. You have a decent amount of cards now, but as someone who mainly utilized Pixelborn for obviously the practice, but also the accessibility, how do you specifically feel about Disney finally putting the ban hammer on Pixelborn? Because I do want to say, before I pass it over, we all knew it was bound to come sooner rather than later, and I know Pavel did say as soon as it happened, he would happily shut it down out of respect. But also, there's definitely a reason why it's been going for this long, because I think we all know that Disney know that it was a benefit for such a long time. Like, Pavel made the game accessible when the game was inaccessible, and that is huge. So, but yeah, I'm curious, Moyen, on your thoughts, since I think a lot of people use the platform not only for practice, but if you don't have the cards. So yeah,
I personally couldn't be more sad about it. I think Pixelborn was great for the game. The amount of people I met, for example, in Lille, that were openly talking about how they always play on Pixelborn and how they got into the game because of Pixelborn, is absolutely incredible. I think there's a lot of and I don't think that it's really the case that there's people that only play Pixelborn. I think at the end, people still want to play tournaments. People still want to play in person. It's just, it's not always possible to play in person. It was a great testing platform. It allowed people to play the game where the game or the product wasn't really accessible. There's lots of let's say players, they have a family, they have a job, they don't get to go out and play locally. They don't all the time, and the only real way for them to regularly play the game was with something like Pixelborn. So I am personally really sad, and while we always knew it was a possibility and it was going to shut down eventually, it still kind of hit me out of nowhere. And now also, now that it is shutting down soon, The coaching interest I've gotten is like at an all-time high because everyone wants to do it before it shuts down. But I'm not even sure if and how I will continue the coaching as soon as it does shut down, because like everything about the coaching just gets less convenient and possibly less efficient as well. And I just hope that there's an official client in the works that
it begs the question, right? Because it's clearly just a terrible strategic decision. I think there's a clear distinction you should make between Disney and Ravensburger as well, because you said Disney knows it's good for the game. I don't believe that. I think Ravensburger knows it's good for the game.
I meant to say that. I did mean to say that. You're correct. Yeah.
I'll give you a little bit of insight on the back end. There's been a bit of a delineation between Ravensburger and Disney. And a lot of these decisions that don't make any sense get that Disney title attached to them. Disney made this decision. Disney made that decision. It seems that Disney's taking a larger interest in some of the game, some of the facets of the game right now. We saw this affect casting at some of these events. And I believe this is exactly what's affecting Pixelborn. So it could just be Disney taking a larger interest and, kind of shoring up things on the legal side or changing their strategy. This kind of decision does beg the question, you would think, obviously, they have a digital client because, let's be real, you would have to be an absolute idiot to not realize that Pixelborn was the best thing that ever happened to Disney Lorcana. You would. Maybe there's more things I don't understand in regards to the legal side where it's not really safe to operate moving forward, et cetera, et cetera. But Pixelborn was a net positive for Lorcana. In my opinion, saved the game, grew the game, number one contributor to the game's success. And I think if you cannot appreciate that, you do not deserve to have whatever job you have. So I don't think that they're ignorant to that. I think that they've made this decision because they probably needed to for reasons that we don't understand. Or it's just we're at that life cycle. Maybe there is a digital client coming. There is a Lorecast coming up. A lot of people are speculating that there will be some announcements there. I would say don't hold your breath. I do think that digital client is coming to Disney Lorcana eventually. We just live in a digital world. Lorcana is not like Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is a game that they're trying to differentiate by not having a digital client. And nevertheless, I think Flesh and Blood will have one eventually because that is just a huge revenue source for these companies. So I think it is coming to Lorcana eventually. The sadness for me is that it might take a while. It might take a long time, and that is going to drastically hurt accessibility to this game. The one thing I was surprised about more than anything else was like all of these comments on Twitter and even some of them on YouTube with people sort of, I don't know, reveling or just being happy about the downfall of Pixelborn. It's the weirdest thing to me. It's the weirdest thing.
I don't understand it.
Very, very sad, miserable people that were doing that.
It's never hurt anyone. I don't think I would like. I'm very likely going to stay playing Lorcana, but I would have never started playing the game without Lorcana. I wouldn't even be part of this podcast. And also, just, I think, one moment that's totally deserved where we just to shine a light on all the good that's been done through Pixelborn. From when was this? It's like 1 month ago. There was already 6.5 million games played through Pixelborn. Over $60,000 have been donated to charities. Everything else was just used to keep up the servers. No profit was ever gained. And the Discord was already bigger than Hearthstone's official Discord. All of this is incredible. And while I am very sad, I can't imagine how sad Pavel must be now that like this entire project is coming to an end.
Yeah, for sure. And looking forward towards that digital client, it is obviously it's going to be monetized. I hope that in 2024, 2025, whenever it comes out, that they take a appropriate approach to monetization, because there are currently games in the industry right now that are top performing mobile card games or sort of digital card games that are not setting a good precedent. I really hope that we do not go in the direction of Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap has set a terrible example, and I really hope that they do not follow suit. That is an incredibly inaccessible and expensive game. And unfortunately, right now, they are making a lot of money doing that. So I hope that they give us something that is reasonable to acquire. Because everybody, I see all these comments are like, oh, Pixelborn's going, I'd be happy to pay for a digital client. You know what? Me too. but there's levels. There's levels. If we're Marvel Snap level, fuck no. I'm done with that. I'm not spending $2,000 on another card game and then getting ripped off after, I can't play it in 4 months or something like that.
One reasonable way to monetize it, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just to have every pack contain a code where you also get a pack online, where it's also connecting those two worlds.
I don't think they'll do that. I've seen games try to do that in the past, and it hasn't really worked out. But maybe. Maybe. I don't think that they have to do that, and that probably wouldn't be the highest EV play for them. I mean, they're going to be money first. I just hope that they take more of a Hearthstone approach than a Marvel Snap approach, because Marvel Snap is egregiously expensive, and you get so far behind, it sucks.
Funny story about that, and I do not believe this, but I don't know if you saw, there was some people trying to speculate that apparently Second Dinner got the license to they keep talking. So Second Dinner have this upcoming game. They keep saying secret project, whatever. And someone looked at the description and was like, "Oh, this sounds very Disney-esque." I personally do not believe, and I have no idea. I genuinely don't know if they are. Come back to this in a year's time and tell me. But I have no idea. But I highly, highly doubt it.
Oh,
but, sorry, Brendan.
That would
make
make sense, but I'm getting PTSD. That would actually make sense. Oh my god. I hope not. Second Dinner has some, unfortunately, extremely smart people on the monetization side that are absolutely driving their player base into poverty. So I hope that is not what happens here. Anyway, let's talk about some other headlines. I picked up the flu, influenza, I guess, in Atlanta. I guess, right? Because I met a lot of people. Other people were getting COVID, getting sick. I thought I had COVID initially, but it's just the flu. It doesn't really make sense because it would have been an over-week incubation period. But yeah, right now I'm super sick. I started getting steroid medicine a couple days ago, so I'm starting to feel better. But yeah, it was rough. I need to change my standard operating procedures at these events. I need to have some hand sanitizer with me. I think I kind of laxed on that. Again, there is that Lorecast upcoming. Do you guys have any other speculations for the Lorecast? People are going, are they going to ban Bucky? Are they going to talk about the digital client? What do you guys have?
I know. I have an idea of what's coming. I don't know anything. I actually don't know anything, but it's very appropriate to assume, I think, that they're going to talk about Set 5 stuff, because it was kind of at this stage, what I think we're officially 4 weeks into Set 4, but we only kind of feel like we're 2 weeks into it because of Atlanta and Lille. But I think it was around the 4 week mark from the last one, from when Set 3 launched, that they did the Lorecast and stuff like that. So, because if you think about it, I think the Lorecast, if the Lorecast didn't announce Set 4, then it talked a lot about Set 4 and stuff like that. So I would really hope that they reveal some more information about the European Championship and the American Championship, the NA Championship, after, so some of these players have already qualified for this, but they're like, what have I qualified for? What am I actually going to? So I hope I hope they keep this kind of cycle going of each Lorecast to kind of dedicate time to a specific thing. And I really hope competitive is kept in there. I saw a tweet from Rochelle, I believe it was yesterday or 2 days ago, who is the community manager for Disney Lorcana, and it was just a quote tweet saying how happy she is to see that we finally get to see tweets of, they mentioned the winner of Lille and Atlanta, and I'm very, very happy to have people like herself and Tim from the Germany Ravensburger team working on Disney Lorcana, because it seems like they really have a true passion to push the competitive scene and push it to the next level. And I think without people like this on the team, Lorcana could have went in a completely different direction if the organized play system wasn't there, set championships and stuff like that. So again, I have to reiterate, I'm truly grateful for the Ravensburger team. I think they're doing a terrific job for a company that has literally only come into the kind of trading card game scene, previously just worked on board games and puzzles and stuff like that. So really, really impressed by what they're doing, and I hope that they continue that going forward. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this European event. The tickets are going on sale on Friday, so I think it's actually before this podcast will probably release, so hopefully you get a ticket. Very interesting tournament structure. You spoke that we spoke about this before we hopped on the podcast. This is very much logistics related to the event, but basically there's going to be 2 different days of Swiss. There's a day 1 and there's a day 2. So it's a Friday event with 1,024 players. There's a Saturday event with 1,024 players. Top 32 individually from each event, respectively, mutually exclusive events, is qualifying for the sort of day 3 or the top cut of that tournament. I've never heard of that being done before. When I first saw the structure, I was like, oh, they're finally doing day 1 Swiss and day 2 Swiss. No, they're just doing day 1 Swiss, 9 rounds, 1,024 players. This is, from what I understand, it's somewhat venue limited because the venue can't really support 2,000 people. What are y'all's thoughts on this as players that are going to be attending that?
I'm going to clarify. It can support 2,000 players because they stated that anyone with a main event ticket can come and play the side events. So side events will be running from on Friday, on Saturday, and on Sunday. We know how much everyone enjoyed those last time, so feel free to clean up on the side events as everyone did last time. But basically, the quote unquote venue limitations, I believe, is they can fit 2,000 players, but it's kind of like a 2-floored venue. So it would mean everyone playing in the main event. If there were 2,000 players, imagine a lot of people running downstairs trying to get to their table. Probably a safety hazard, that type of thing. But I think I'm still happy with the decision because it does mean that it's not just going to be, okay, the event is capped to 1K players. It will be 2K players. It's just a bit of a weird structure because it's going to be on 2 separate days. I know before the pod, myself and Moyne and Brendan, we were talking about, what's the best day to actually go and try to compete on? And we all very quickly came to the same conclusion.
Friday. It's Friday.
Yep.
Yeah. What day's going to be? So obviously you can't really make an educated decision on this, but theoretically, Friday should be the softer day. Friday should be the easier tournament. That is because good card game players, usually have jobs. So they have to actually work for a living, and can maybe not change their accommodation, their travel last minute, and they can also not take time off work. That being said, it could go either way, but if I was a betting man, I'd be playing Friday.
I think most people would have expected that the first day was going to be Saturday anyways. And if anyone, like myself, has somehow booked accommodation and flights before and they're hoping that they're going to get a ticket, it's like, oh, fine, I'll just play on the Saturday. And also, I will say, if you actually make it on the Friday, yes, you can play side events on the Saturday, but you could just like actually rest. You're not literally, okay, I'm playing on a Saturday. It's the event ended at like 11 p.m. I have to go straight home, make sure I sleep, and then play the next day.
Question. Can you enter the tournament on the Friday, not do well, drop, and then play?
No. You have to buy a ticket for either the Friday or the Saturday. So I still do think that the Saturday tickets, I think they're going to sell out way faster. Yeah. Maybe not way faster, but definitely faster than the Friday tickets.
Throw in like a Sherlock Holmes disguise, change your name a bit. You're playing both days.
You know, I'll be honest.
Someone's going to do that. I feel like someone's going to do that.
So I have to give a shout out to some of the Irish Lorcana boys. We have a group chat, and some dude was literally like, but like, yeah, what if people have different IDs from different countries? So like, I bring like my Brazilian passport, and then I bring my German passport. But one of the organizers within Tournament Center did say that they are going to be really, really scrutinous when it comes to this. They're going to be checking a lot of different things. People said, oh, well, I could just register with one Melee account and then register with another Melee account. But I know a lot of people in the like Tournament Center Discord just said, just be aware because a lot of people will try and do this. Like lots of people will try and abuse this system. So hopefully they catch everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we might hear. Yeah, they would just DQ. If there's even a hint of like, oh yeah, you were here the last time. Yeah.
Hey, but you get a good disguise. Like, I mean, respect. What can I say?
I don't know.
Get that little mustache going.
Shave. Yeah, you're so in. Friday. Yeah, you're so into it. Just like, so on the Friday, come with full long hair, full facial hair. The next day, shave your head, shave your beard.
Hey, we're talking like 50K EV. That's worth.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
50K EV. How good do you have to be to have 50K EV?
Pretty good. Anyway, also in the headlines, we had the last pack, the pack online tournament. We're going to be reviewing those lists in the main topic. I'm assuming the pack will be hosting webcam tournaments. Sounds like that they're going to be involved in all this. I saw it retweeted, stuff like that. So that's what we can expect. But we did see this sort of last big online tournament, last big $10,000 tournament happen, and we have top 16 lists from that, in which we're going to extrapolate the Chicago metagame and talk about what we think is potentially the best deck for that tournament. And then lastly, I want to pass over to you guys to give us a little UK Games Expo recap, playing all the different card games, winning all the different card games. How'd it go?
It was really fun. It was 3 days of events. We quickly realized that the best way to win the playmat. So there was the exclusive promo event playmats. There was one last year, I believe, for like Gen Con and PAX, and that one right now is worth a hefty $1,400. So The mat that myself and, as you can see, Moyen won, we reckon it's probably roughly worth about $500 at the moment. But the funny thing was, there was a main event, which was 64 players. It was just 6 rounds of Swiss. Top 4 got the playmat, and then the winner got a signed playmat. Basically, to get top 4 in that format, you obviously have to go undefeated, or if you lose one game, even if you lose one game, you have to get incredibly lucky with your tiebreakers to make sure you guarantee top 4. So it was really tough format. So we quickly realized that they also ran side events where the winner of 8-man constructed pods also got playmats. So we kind of went that direction, and myself and my fiance started farming those. So I got a playmat, she got a playmat. Moyen and Spessy faced off a little bit in some finals for the side events. So it's funny because I actually found the side events way more enjoyable than the main event, honestly. So
I mean, a big reason why I found them more enjoyable too was just I love the expo. I love games. I like card games. I like board games. There was so many. It was
so much to do.
It was literally heaven for me. So while I do love playing Lorcana, I didn't want to spend the entire day playing Lorcana, and I wanted to actually get to check out the booths. So for that reason, I also much preferred playing the side events. And in one of the drafts, I actually got to play with Emily Abidira, and she's the artist that also designed King Undisputed, Peter Pan, and whatever this card is.
Something magical, right? I think.
Yeah.
So that was also really, really nice.
Yeah.
In general, I will say Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think people understand how much of a freaking fiend Moyen is. Like, if I even whisper card game to him, he's just in. He's just in. He's down to play. He's in. Like,
oh yeah, it was. I could tell it was heaven for him. But yeah, there was so many cool games we went through and we wanted to test out. One that we actually didn't do, a little side note, Brendan, was I was telling Moyen about this. So apparently there's like this new Marvel trading card game, but it looks like it was designed for 5-year-olds. It looks very, very basic, which is, it's a bit weird to me because like for trading card game, there's so many things that go along with that, right? Like you want like collectability, you want really, really cool art, and you want organized play. So I went up to this dude and I was like, you're working with Marvel, this company, whatever. I'm like, oh, do you guys have organized play in the works? And he's like, I don't think so. I'm like, okay. Well, that's
how it should be.
Already.
That's how it should be. 2024, in this age of the TCG bull or whatever, because we got new TCGs coming out all the time. If they don't have organized play, don't pay attention to them. Now, you can play for fun, but like, I mean, seriously, I'm not even going to think about your game if it doesn't have OP and you're not taking yourself seriously. Because like a lot of this stuff is just very pump and dumpy. People realize that, people are putting up Kickstarters for card games and making $1 million like that. Like people, these companies are getting IP licenses and they're making tens of millions of dollars just right off the bat. The first sets like always sell out. There's tons of FOMO. So you're going to see a bunch of shit come into the market like you are. I'm not saying that game is bad, but it's going to happen. And then ultimately, this whole cycle should cool down, and 90% of these card games are going to die, and that's just how it is.
Me, I particularly enjoyed Altad, which we've also been jamming.
You and I played that online a bunch.
Yeah. It's fun. It was really, really, really fun. Yeah, I can't wait to get my boxes for that.
Moyen had some critiques when we played online. Did they?
No,
I
didn't love the card design of the starter decks, but also now we've got to see some more cards than that, and the deck building restrictions where you only get to put in like 15 rares, 3 uniques, and then some commons. So okay, but I still have my thoughts about it. But the gameplay was really, really fun. It's just I wanted to talk about, because you said about the millions on.
Oh yeah, they are the most funded card game on Kickstarter, 6.2 million. But
that's crazy.
What's funny? Yeah, we're actually going to go off on a bit of a tangent, but I do think it's important to talk about all these other card games as well. There's another card game, Wonders of the First.
That one actually looks sick though. Like, see, I played what the fuck, Altered, and I was a little bit unimpressed with the card design. I think that the game system is really cool, where it kind of feels like you have decisions sometimes. There are some plus EV plays that you kind of always make, and I like that you're playing on a board. But Wonders of the First looked. I didn't get into it. I didn't back the project because I basically told myself I'm never going to back another Kickstarter, because every Kickstarter I've backed has been delayed by years, and it sucks. I wanted to play Wonders of the First online before I backed it, and I couldn't do that.
Did you hear about the shit that went down with Wonders of the First?
No, I did not. I did see the Kickstarter went down and came back up though. What happened?
They nearly got kicked off Kickstarter because they've got NFTs.
Is that what that is? Is it not allowed on? Okay. Yeah. So I read a lot of the verbiage sounded like it was it. So this has happened before. I've seen this. I can't remember which game it is, but I've seen it happen where a card game was clearly developed like 2 years ago when the whole NFT card game thing was very popular. And then they sort of that's what Altered is. Yeah, that's what Altered is. That Altered is if you
Altered isn't not NFTs though,
but it is designed. It is designed exactly like an NFT card game would be, where you have these. I
do agree that if it wasn't specified that like the online market is just like you're just buying and trading
and unique cards and stuff, and it sounds like it was an NFT game, and then they took it out because the NFT thing kind of cooled off. Right. That's what it sounds like to me. So what I'm assuming because I read the Wonder stuff and I was like, it sounds like that, but
all I know is that they got taken down and it was a big thing about that, and then it is back up, and they also said that they're not going to reprint their cards. They're like a huge like collectible kind of type of thing. That's like the big thing for them. But yeah, I mean the ultimate conclusion for this kind of tangent is that there's a lot of card games coming out. Better have organized play, better have good systems. It's tough competition. Out there. But then also like the example of Altered where they said they're not going to have like this dedicated digital client, but they're basically using Board Game Arena, which I'm pretty sure that's where you played it, Brendan, right? That's going to be open to use. So the idea that they're going for is they want a place where people can play all the time online. They said they probably won't host tournaments on it, but they said the idea is you can practice there online, and then you can... when you get your cards and stuff like that on the marketplace, for the print and play stuff, is you just order as many cards as you want, and they just have to check that it's in your collection online. So I'm interested to see how that system ends up working out and is executed, because it sounds kind of clunky with getting it mailed to you, and like the actual logistics. I'm assuming they thought a lot about it, but the logistics of like printing on demand, mailing to people sounds hectic. One last thing for card games coming out, you guys are like, wait, talk about Lorcana. The fucking Bazaar is coming out. Oh my finally, God. Bro.
What this okay,
is that one of those games you were talking about that you backed ages ago?
No, I did not, thank God.
Because it's one I did.
Yes.
It's one I did.
The Bazaar is a game that's created by Reynad, owner, I believe, of Tempo Storm, OG Hearthstone player, the infamous creator of Handlock. He's talked about the Bazaar. I mean, it's been like a decade, and there's been all these videos. The whole entire ethos of the game has changed. Like they came out at one point with like a dev update. They're like, "Oh, it's going to be PvE only." And you're like, "What?" But it was one of those games that was never going to come out, and it's coming out in October. Yeah, it's crazy.
Then other games came out with like their concept of
asynchronous
auto battling, then they didn't like that.
What was it? Super auto battle pets or some shit like that?
No, it's a good game. Don't shit talk about it. Also, the one non-card game I really enjoyed at UK Games Expo was Crokinole. It was like some flicking game with rules that were similar to curling. It was very, very fun. But okay, just one last thing about Expo, because to me, I might even visit it even without any of the tournaments, because it was such a good atmosphere where everyone was so passionate about their niche hobby and like very open-minded that was like super enjoyable to try out all the games.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean those things are super fun. And if you're an enjoyer of games, I've sort of had this stance since the very beginning. This whole like card game bull market thing where we're gonna get like a lot of these games are going to be trash, but as a consumer, as long as you don't buy into some of the BS that they're selling you, where it's like collectability, and it's like new IP, it's collectible, and you like put money into it to try to invest, more games better, because like you just get to have like it's so fun to play a new game sometimes, and the best should rise to the top. So it's a great time to be a player for sure. Anyway. Let's head into our Spilled Ink section. It's our listener question section. If you want your question read on next week's podcast, shoot us a comment on YouTube. We'll get it queued up. Over to you guys.
All right, first one's from Jogue. Hey guys, just about recovered from Games Expo. What a great event. Good times had, and it was a pleasure chatting with Kawa about the state of the game. With the addition of Ariel into Blue Steel, they seem to have flipped the matchup against Ruby Sapphire. I decided to play Ariel in my own Ruby Sapphire list on Saturday and Sunday, and she did a lot of work in several matchups. Maybe this is the way, along with the return of Tremaine, to get the matchup back in favor of Ruby Sapphire. I do think the list needs to evolve going forward to maintain control of the format. Will be interesting to see how it does so. This is something I really agree with. This is something I got my ass whooped by over the weekend. Was this? It's the 6 cost uninkable Ariel with Ward. You use Ariel and Dime, and suddenly it literally becomes a 2-turn clock. Especially, I was playing Emerald Steel, So in my hand, I thought, okay, anything they play, I pretty much have an answer for because I had We Don't Talk About Bruno. At least can bounce it back to their hand. Not when the card has Ward. So that really, really sucked. But I do think, interestingly enough, you play that card in the mirror match, then suddenly, Tremaine kind of comes into play again, even Be King Undisputed, which I saw not all of the Ruby Sapphire players were running, but I do think it's a very, very good card. I also think that card's very good within Ruby Amethyst because you can sing about like your Merlin Rabbits and stuff like that. So I do agree that Ariel is a very, very good card. The issue is, and I will say it is an issue, but it's just as the game evolves and as there's more cards to come out, like it is trying to fit in that card and take out other cards in terms of there's already so many great uninkable 6-drops that go into that deck, such as Madame Medusa and Tremaine. So yeah, but I do think it's definitely a 2 you could slot in there and suddenly it becomes like a much better win condition. I don't know if I want to say much better win condition.
It is a better win condition because the fucking Ruby Sapphire deck could be prepared. Like the Ruby Sapphire deck could be prepared. Didn't have King Undisputed. Didn't have Tremaine. So like you literally put on the battlefield with Daunt. What are they doing? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
What were you saying?
Go ahead, Moin.
Yeah, it's just so it's much easier to fit it into Sapphire Steel than it is into Ruby Sapphire because Ruby Sapphire has so many uninkables that it already needs to play. So I think because when I posted the rank 1 list from last week, it was 0 B prep, 0 Tremaine. People are like, yeah, but how do you answer this? It's just it was in a meta where that was barely played. So of course, if now people want to beat Ruby Sapphire with Ariels, then we can start thinking about okay, B prep's a decent card and it helps me for that. Tremaine could help us for both Sapphire matchups, and we can adjust the deck a little bit, but it just doesn't need to be adjusted before people tech for the deck at all. But I don't think we really want to play it as our own win condition. I think as long as we can answer their Ariel like decently well, that's good enough. Also, the other problem is against Sapphire Steel, it doesn't really lure for 5 in Ruby Sapphire because they often have at least the same amount of items as you do.
Yeah. The blue steel deck is really interesting right now. I find that, at least, the meta adapts very, very quickly, but for an extent there, I felt like it was actually favored into Ruby Sapphire, and it was actually unfavored into Green Steel, which is like very paradoxical from the set 3 understanding of the deck matchup. But yeah, I think that card is great. It might fade out of the metagame as decks adapt, but it absolutely did flip the Ruby Sapphire matchup for some amount of time.
Yeah, and even when Ruby Sapphire attacks, I think it will still be a close matchup as to before it was like an almost unwinnable matchup. Against Emerald Steel, funnily enough, even if they can answer the Diablos so well, I think they can at time to time just fall behind against like Robin Hoods and Beasts, where they're just so beefy and they're lacking removal for those. And then all they're doing is like ramping, drawing some cards, and they can quickly fall behind in lore, and then it's really hard for them to really catch up on the board against specifically Robin Hoods.
Yeah, I'm surprised in how that matchup went because, I'm a little bit surprised in general at the start because like initially when I was like, okay, what's Green Steel versus Ruby Sapphire going to be like? I imagined it would be extremely, extremely favored because as it was pretty much in set 3. And I do think that it is still favored, but within Ruby Sapphire specifically, like if they just ramp and they get their Sisu out and they can deal with the bookies and they just keep having the Medusas and Tremaines, it can definitely still be a tough matchup. And same way, I thought Sapphire Steel would be able to easily deal with the discard stuff. But yeah, like you mentioned, some of the beefy units are quite difficult to get rid of. So
yeah, I find
it's probably a good thing though, right? That like a lot of these things are happening that we expected it to go one way, but it's actually going a different way.
Yeah, the thing that really describes Ruby Sapphire for me right now is I think it's a super powerful deck, but I think oftentimes it's facing matchups where it needs very specific answers, and it also needs multiple very specific answers to very different things. So, for instance, against something like Ruby Amethyst, they go 1-drop, 2-drop Flynn, 3 Sisu, and then they go Castle. You're like, as the Ruby Sapphire player, you're trying to deal with the Castle and the Flynn that's gaining 3 lore a turn. And then you play against Green Steel, it's like, oh, I need the early Brawler, I need the early Sisu for the Diablo, but then I also have to have like the Medusa and sometimes the ramp for the Beast. And it's like you're just getting attacked in like multiple different angles all the time. And then you run this high on inkable count. It just feels like the deck is super powerful, but the margins can be really thin. So I've actually kind of personally I've started to move away from Ruby Sapphire a bit, mostly in lieu of Ruby Amethyst, which we'll talk about in the main topic. But I feel like the Ruby Amethyst is a lot more powerful than I expected because we had some cards sneak in there. And the new Flynn is just ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Such a good card.
Mm-hmm. Our next one's from Battable Harka. I often think of cards in terms of packages of cards with similar roles or effects. From there, I choose the ratio of cards I want within that group. It often results in 4-2 or 3-1 type splits of cards. The reality is that we just can't actually get the reps needed to determine optimal card counts. So you're always going to be playing it by feel or theory on some level. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's a hard thing though. I always wonder because let's say you have a deck. Let's say it's mostly 4 ofs. It's a very strong build, and you play a couple matches, and you're like, feels like I need the Tremaine, right? Feels like I need the Tremaine. I've ran into multiple blue reds in a row, and I'm just getting owned by this Tabato or something like that. I'm getting owned by the Ariel. You add in the 2 Tremaine, and your sample size was 3. It's when is it correct? When in the deck building process is it actually correct to go back, reconfigure the deck, and try to tech for this metagame that you're just currently queuing into? And how much of it is just recency bias and is actually moving you towards a less consistent and actually worse deck and kind of skewing your sample size for understanding the true power level of the deck? That's where it's just something I struggle with, because I think that we're naturally inclined that when we queue into something a few times, even if it's an outlier experience where we double queue into a Ruby Sapphire when it's not popular in the metagame or something like that, we're okay, maybe I go add this tech card in my deck. But it's if you look at the aggregate of the metagame, maybe it's not the correct decision. Yeah, It's tough.
Next one's from Nintendo. Question for Spilled Ink. When do you buy your cards? Wait a week after big box stores get product, or what? I am definitely not the best example to follow for this. I just buy boxes. I buy boxes. I open packs. But if you guys want to buy cards efficiently, just wait until the singles market comes out. But I actually do like this question because specifically, Brendan, do you I'll just buy singles after a week? Will you wait a little bit? And now, especially with Pixelborn, and I imagine you don't have Pixelborn to test stuff. Sure, you can use other stuff maybe Tabletop Simulator or whatever to try and do some stuff. If you just want to get some testing on the ground, will you be okay, I'll actually just wait 2 weeks until singles are relatively okay? Or when would you think is the most appropriate time?
So I don't really speculate too much. I think that if you understand the card power level matrix in Lorcana, you can probably buy some cards earlier rather than later before they go up in price, because sometimes it's a bit predictable. For me, I kind of just buy them whenever I need them, and actually wait as long as possible because the metagame is so dynamic. And I usually buy them from my local game store because, they price them competitively and it's just easiest for me. Sometimes I buy them from locals as well. But yeah, I don't really have a super strong strategy. The thing is, for me, after playing card games for a few years now, physical card games, I'm so over the cards. I'm so over my freaking closet back there that is just cards and cards and cards and cards and cards. It is such a weight. So I am just done buying boxes. I do have a bunch of cards behind me because I ended up winning a bunch of set 3 boxes in the store championships from prizing. But other than that, I don't think I'm ever buying another sealed product again in my life, dude. It has become such a burden of just clutter.
Yeah, for me, I also just if I know what I'm playing, probably 2 weeks before the tournament, I will order every single that I need, which is not always the perfect time value wise to buy the card, but I really want to know that I actually need the card to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is very expensive to let's say now I want to buy Emerald Steel, Sapphire Steel, Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst, all the cards, just to have everything available. It is quite expensive.
Well, yeah, if you want to buy a meta, right now the most expensive deck I do believe is Emerald Steel, and it's about $700 roughly. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and people told me One Piece was expensive.
$700. $700 to play Emerald Steel. They deserve it. Those Emerald Steel players, they deserve it. They deserve the poverty.
All right, next one is from Mr. Roglam. Question for Spilled Ink. Do you guys think, especially in context of the Disney IP, which should be family friendly, that Ravensburger will make some kind of code of conduct? What I mean by that is enhancing some ways of interacting, like being kind and polite. For example, in large events of miniature games like Middle-earth SBG, there are even prizes for best sportsmanship behavior. As always, a pleasure to listen to you. I think they will always encourage this type of behavior. I don't know if they will enforce it upon people.
Did you see the controversy on Magic the Gathering this past week in regards to something like this?
I did not.
So what happened? There was a IDW. So basically they had IDW. I forget what it exactly stands for, but they like there was a mistake in terms of like they thought they were trying to determine the winner of a game in some specific way that they're not allowed to, and then there was a bad judge ruling, like an incorrect judge ruling, and the player was DQ'd, or the player had a game loss, double game loss. But then the player like slammed the table and got DQ'd. And there was like, there was a lot of controversy because first of all, the judge ruling, from what I understand, was not correct. But then like they were also there was a lot of like posts like trying to justify acting like this. And in my opinion, there not only is that DQ absolutely warranted and you should never act like that ever. Your emotions are 100% not valid in the case of you acting out like that. There's no validity to acting out in a violent way. For me, the biggest flex at like when playing card games is just pure stoicism. Like it's professionalism. It's being graceful in defeat, being graceful in victory. Like people that get emotional and get nasty, I lose 100% of respect for them because for me, they are just children. Like I cannot stand it. And I think the biggest flex as a player is just to be super professional, super clear, and just not emotional at the table. I think that there's no room for it. But yeah, the TLDR was like there was an incorrect ruling, and then the player had ultimately like slammed the table with their fist and gotten DQ'd. And it was like, they don't think they deserved it because they think they there was like they were justified in being upset, but they're not, right? You're never justified to act like that.
Even on a wrong judge call, like that's other
pathetic
ways to go about it.
Yeah.
But what if we have code of conduct where it's it's enforced that we use the proper wording? So if you go like, okay, I play Maui, attack and kill your castle, DQ'd for saying attack, DQ'd for saying kill.
Yeah. I don't think they'll ever have rewards, but I do think like for me to gain true respect for someone as a player, it's actually less about their skill and more about how they behave themselves at the table. I think that shows like a true veteran and shows a true player. And for instance, if I do basically own part of a Flesh and Blood team, and probably what is statistically right now the most winning team in Flesh and Blood. If we ever got word, for the people that are part of the ownership of that team, we ever got word that anybody acted in that way, like even close, like even was sour about a loss, they're 100% gone, instantly gone. It is so embarrassing. So yeah, you got to be graceful in defeat, graceful in victory, and I believe that like professionalism is absolutely the biggest flex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And next one's from Jackson. What are your thoughts on adding a sideboard to Lorcana? We've talked about this for quite a while, honestly.
Yeah, how do you feel about it now, this deep into the game? Because we talked about it, back in the early days, and I feel like in set one gameplay was lacking a bit. So yeah, maybe it kind of felt like there should be a sideboard. How about now? This is like prime Lorcana.
I don't know. I personally don't think I don't want to say I wouldn't like to see it, but I don't think we need it right now. To be honest, I'm very I'm personally very happy with how the inking system can be kind of thought of a little bit as the sideboard. So using certain cards when you need to, and then like inking is like one of the hardest decisions in the game. Honestly, is like, and I even talked about Temoin a little bit on the weekend, and this comes all the way back to set one, Brendan, that you mentioned it, where like some players when they look at like their ink, say they have quite an uninkable hand, and they say, oh well, I still want to play like my 1-drop on 1 or my 2-drop on 2, my 3-drop on 3, and I think players have adapted, but there are still some players that are like, I will just keep playing this on curve, and oh well, if I draw, I should draw this inkable card, so maybe it'll be okay, and this is kind of the decisions. But there's some players that they don't realize, okay, if I just ink a card and maybe I have to pass this turn, I can kind of get my game rolling and stuff like that. So I'm still very happy with the inking system. I think that kind of is the sideboard of Lorcana personally, but I mean, know what you guys think.
I'm usually a big skeptic when it comes to sideboards. I know people love them in Magic, but often the cards that will end up in your sideboard are like hate tech cards, like say Rise of the Titans, or maybe Avalanche, or maybe the new card that destroys all items. And I genuinely think that these type of cards make for worse gameplay. So for that reason, I'm not sad that we do not have a sideboard.
I would say in Lorcana, I would probably agree with Moyen. That being said, like one thing I do like about sideboard in some other games is like things like transformational sideboards. You can see mid-range decks transform into control decks. Like sometimes that can be really cool. I also like having answers, but the thing is in Lorcana, because it doesn't have a land system like MTG, you can add those cards into your deck at an opportunity cost. That's why we talk about the distinction between inkable and uninkable tech cards. But you can add things like inkable tech cards into your deck, and if you think the metagame warrants that, like it's a completely reasonable deck building choice. Like part of me wishes there were sideboards in Lorcana because it would make content a lot better for us, because we would be able to provide a lot more content in regards to deck techs, because that's a huge part of deck techs. It's a huge part of providing value as a competitive content creator, is things like sideboards. But nevertheless, I really like the system, and I find that I think part of the reason we spend so long deck building, and that might change as Pixelborn goes away, part of the reason we're engaged with the set for so long is because that we are limited to that deck. We are limited to what should be 60 card count. We have to fit the cards we want in there.
Next one's from Dad Gamer Life. Have you guys been trying the 2-drop 3/2 Cruella along with Brawl in Ruby Sapphire as the tech against Diablo and Pegasus? This past week, as long as I hadn't answered Diablo, I was not worried about Bucky because I had sheer draw and scry power in Ruby Sapphire. Oh, that's just the card that they used to run in they used to be running Sapphire Steel, right, to deal with Minnie Mouse a lot. I think that was the first reason we kind of saw that played in Sapphire. It's just another card if you're really, really struggling against Diablos. But ultimately, that's the type of card where, I mean, I kind of, it's weird. Like, I'm coming back to set 3. I remember I was considering putting like the 2-drop 3/2 Jafar into my deck that has evasive of my turn to like deal with Minnie Mouse and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm like, okay, this card is only good against this exact card in this exact situation. I prefer to have cards that are much more flexible throughout the game that can maybe also deal with that kind of card. And it is also kind of interesting because I'm going to move away from the Cruella and kind of bring both of your guys' attention to Brawl as a card, because I've seen a lot of people saying they actually don't really like including Brawl in their deck too much, but they think it is necessary to include for the Diablo.
Yeah.
So I think that's a better card to keep in your deck, saying, okay, I really might need this for the Diablo, but Cruella, I don't think.
Yeah, because the 3/2 is a body that can quest, and Brawl is something that has limited options. So, like you spoke earlier, you said Undisputed King is a really good card. I actually think it's a bad card. The problem, I think the thing is like we're in a metagame where you have to answer things. Like there are cards that are overwhelmingly powerful that are not interactable. Things like Diablo, things like Bucky, that you just have to be able to interact with, or you just lose the game. And I think that's a big difference between Mini and Diablo. Is Mini was, okay, you want to answer the Mini because it's a really powerful, aggressive threat. It can also sing. But, ultimately, you're not really make or break on, do I answer the Mini this turn? Feels like with the Diablo, you answer it or you're just losing. Like, I don't know how decks win and actually leave Diablo. Do you guys ever think there'd be a situation where you could leave a Diablo on the entire time and win, unless you were playing like a more aggressive deck? I would think it would just accrue too much value. Seems like a must-answer card.
You're probably
you can
right.
keep it a few turns, ramp, and then maybe prep Sisu or Medusa it, but it's like you still have to answer it like quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think King Undisputed isn't like the most amazing card, but I think it's a very decent card. Especially in a Ruby Amethyst deck that has like great 4-cost singers. So it's much better than the Teeth and Ambitions that saw some play in the last sets. But I think the main reason why I don't like Cruella or Jafar as Diablo answers is so they help the consistency of answering Diablo somewhat. That is true, and when they do, they're completely fine. I think the biggest issue with them is that you can even get more punished against Diablo if they have, let's say, Shift Diablo plus Let the Stormrage on, or they just playing an entire card that's a Let the Stormrage on target that didn't do anything else for you can make you fall behind even more. And for that reason, I think there's a big risk in trying to Diablo with a 3/2 evasive, and that's why I don't think that's really an option I would like to take.
What are your thoughts on Peter Pan's Shadow? It's was brought up, I think, before this podcast. I'm actually quite interested in it. I mean, it's a 2/3 evasive rush card in Amethyst.
Well, there's Peter Pan's Shadow, and then there's what's the other one, Moyne? Like Peter
Pan
Pan's
Shadow Finder.
Finder.
Okay.
What is that?
It's the 3-2/3 evasive that doesn't give rush cards evasive. It gives evasive cards rush, and it only quests for 1. So it's like not a on baseline. It might not look like a better card than Peter Pan Shadow, but it's the much better card than answering Diablo, because the shifted out Diablo you want to answer a turn earlier, and it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that card is a very valid tech choice. I've tested the matchup into Ruby Amethyst a lot, and it still seemed Emerald Steel favored even when we were testing it with a few Peter Pan's Shadow Finders. So we'll have to see if it would be enough to like somewhat even out the matchup. But and it's not like it's really not a great card against like the Sapphire decks. It will just be an uninkable mini that quests for 1.
Mm-hmm. It's uninkable 3 costs, yeah.
Which will definitely hurt, but it is. I think it's a completely valid choice to attack Ruby Amethyst for Emerald Steel.
Yeah.
The amount of anti Diablo tech cards I saw, I was playing against a Ruby Amethyst player. I believe it was on Friday, or it might have been on Saturday at the UK Games Expo. And like, I kind of expected a Brawl, maybe Peter Pan Shadow. My guy had like Brawl, Peter Pan Shadow, had Teeth and Ambitions, had Maui's Fishhook, had so much to try and answer this Diablo. Like, do you think there's levels that we have a certain amount of answers, or do you think that a lot of your early game really has to be teched against Diablo? Do you think it is literally that powerful that you have to?
Well, I don't know if it's that much, but I think that if you do not answer Diablo, I think you will lose the game more often than not. The card is absolutely busted. Like it is a must answer threat. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, but I think the next thing that should help out our fellow Americans playing in the Chicago event is, I think people automatically just like to shift Diablo whenever they can. But especially because the 1-cost Diablo gives you the information, let's say they have a Brawl, I think there's a lot of value to be gained in shifting out the Diablo, not into your opponent's turn 3, but for example, against Ruby Amethyst into their turn 4, where suddenly now they have to play Brawl instead of a Rabbit and not just Brawl instead of a Crab. And utilizing the timing of your shift Diablo in that way, I think makes Emerald Steel a significantly more powerful deck, and Diablo an even more powerful card than it already is.
Yeah. The thing is, when you Brawl a shifted Diablo, like it's pretty good, right? Because you 2-for-1 them. It's technically a 3-for-1, but the Diablo is going to cantrip the card that you draw on the turn. So you 2-for-1 your opponent when you do that, because they have to discard the action card.
Yeah, unless they were on the play and they shifted out turn 2, which means it stuck 2 turns, then
it's
you like 1-for-1, but you used 3 and they used 1. If they buckied, then you still got 2-for-1.
Yeah, that's why people hate that freaking squirrel, is because it's so annoying. Damn squirrel. People, I've never seen more discourse on Twitter about a card than the freaking squirrel.
People trying to ban Bucky, I think that's what I've seen a lot of people saying is ban Bucky, but I don't know. Like, how do you think it is like so bad that should be the bannable card? Yeah,
I don't know yet. You gotta let some tournaments happen, to be honest. Like it should. So the thing is, I do think it's a toxic deck. Like I think Green Seal is like a pretty toxic high rolly deck. Not that you have to high roll to win. I think it's a very dynamic, very very powerful deck, but it does do some absolutely toxic high roll things on the play where it's just like, okay, it's just so annoying.
It was always toxic. It's just now it's on top of that. It's a very good deck, and so we see the toxicity more. So I would say BBB is not bibbidi bobbidi boo. It's better ban Bucky.
Yeah, and
better ban Bucky.
It's eye of the beholder. One man's trash is another man's treasure. But some people think Bucky's toxic. I think a lot of people who have a reasonable head on their shoulders. But some people are like, Flaversham's toxic.
Yeah,
so, which those people can just shut up. But
all right. Next comment is from Jacob. What's your opinion on keeping or sending back 1 jump ahead when playing Ruby Sapphire on the draw versus an Emerald Steel deck? Had a debate about this recently with friends. 1 jump ahead on turn 2 is the best possible opener, but Ursula is a threat through in your day. Do you keep 1 jump ahead if you open with it in hand? I don't know any world where if you're playing Ruby Sapphire, you're throwing 1 jump ahead, even if there's an Ursula, because they have to have the Ursula. If they don't have the Ursula, you're playing the 1 jump. And I do think that it's the best thing that Ruby Sapphire does. Like the amount of times I've heard from Ruby Sapphire players, I didn't get my ramp, so my game plan was pretty bad. And also, if you send them one jump ahead back, you're literally just saying, okay, well, oh yay, it didn't get Ursula, but now I played nothing on turn 2, and I'm just like, you know.
Oh, you can play Scuttle.
Yeah, you could.
You could.
I saw some flints in the top card, but so last set, I think Ursula was always their preferred play, and still you always kept one jump ahead because there's a few scenarios. There's the scenario where your opponent doesn't draw their Ursula and you just get to go one jump. There's the scenario where they get to draw their Ursula, but you kept one jump ahead and you drew into another. Suddenly you can still play one jump ahead on 2, and this is an incredibly important card to play on turn 2. So even before, I think one jump ahead was always a keep on in Ruby Sapphire. But now it's even more the case because now your opponent's optimal play line is Bucky on 2. And first of all, if they have both the options to play Ursula or Bucky on 2, they might just decide to play the Bucky because it fits their curve incredibly well. And from their perspective, they don't know that Ursula is heading anything. Let's say we would okay, this is just a hypothetical. Top players would come to the conclusion that you throw away one jump ahead, which would never happen. But then they could even just never Ursula on 2 over the Bucky, always play the Bucky on 2, and you're still always passing on 2. I think, I hope I speak for all 3 of us. I think keep one jump ahead.
Yeah, what if Ursula ever falls out of the deck because their turn 2 is so contested now?
I don't think it does.
I don't think so.
Because they don't, it's still a very good turn 2 play if they don't find Bucky, and then it's also incredible against Ruby Sapphire, and then it's also incredible to protect yourself against grab swords, against Sapphire Steel, be prep later in the game.
I think it's a great card. I don't think it's going anywhere. It also synergizes with some of the discard stuff. Like if you happen to be playing Prince John, I know that doesn't happen too often, but I love the Ursula. I think getting it specifically against Sapphire Ruby is really, really good because if you're not hitting the one jump, you're probably going to hit a how far I'll go. I mean, I think I did that over the weekend where they got their one jump and I got rid of their how far I'll go, and they had no other turn 4 play, and that felt like really, really good. Like if they're doing nothing on turn 4, or sorry, they're turn 3, but they have 4 ink, it still felt pretty good, you know?
I think if there's any Ursula that falls out of the deck, it would be the 3-cost Ursula because of how congested the 3 ink turn is and of how much removal there is in the meta for something like Ursula anyways.
I've liked putting that card down on turn 3 to kind of beta brawl sometimes because that card can still do really powerful things. It kind of has to be dealt with. The reason why Pinocchio was run a lot of the time in the previous set was to deal with the Ursula and the green decks. So sometimes playing that, baiting the brawl, getting Diablo out, or even if that Ursula sticks. I am a fan of that Ursula in the deck currently because I think it synergizes so well with obviously the Storm Ray John and especially Sudden Shield. But I do also agree that if there's room to just maybe go a little bit more full on into the Floodborn Bucky synergy or whatever, maybe you kind of take that out because turn 3 is your most contested turn in terms of what things you want to be doing. Maybe you play your Diablo, maybe you play Prince John, maybe you play Ursula, maybe you just play the 3-drop Aladdin Floodborn to synergize with your Bucky. So there's a lot of different things you want to be doing. And I could see the card falling out, but it's also a super powerful card, so maybe it's those. All right, next comment is from Wen Crew. When are you sending t-shirts out? Sadly, didn't get mine in time for Atlanta.
Yes,
I got my shipping notification. Let's go.
Yeah, they're shipped. Mm-hmm. They're shipped. So we'll probably be doing that giveaway so there's a giveaway currently going on. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, giving away a large, medium, or XL. I actually got an extra XL to one lucky reviewer. So yeah, it's when I get those shirts in hand, which is going to be in a couple days. So probably when this podcast releases, we'll have them in hand. So we'll do it for our next episode.
So they should be out for definitely Bochum and what's the next? It's Fort Worth, Brendan, right? For
Fort Worth.
States.
But it's like a while. It's like a month and a half or something.
Yeah, you say, it's like a while, but you guys got a challenge 2 weeks after the first challenge, which is just insane. So lucky.
American privilege right there.
All right. Our last comment is from Fensk. What's the best way to improve your game if you have limited free time? Number 1, play the game. Number 2, watch high skill players play the game. Number 3, listen to high skill players talk about the game. 4, some mix of the above. I think the things that you're doing, they're very, very good. I think
if you ranked it, how would you rank it hierarchically?
I think I'd put Oh, I think I put watch high skill players
So
play
do
the
I.
game at number
Same.
1.
Depends where you're at, in my opinion. Depends where you're at.
Mm.
But I do think that watching high skill players and just mimicking the patterns that you see, because you don't even need to know necessarily the methodologies behind it, like all the theory, is like the quickest way to get better. But you also have to play the game.
For me, it's watch high skill players play the game, and then the other two. But when watching high players play the game, I would say not just mimic what they are doing. It's like before. I think so. This is what I would do if I wanted to get good at a new game. Just try to make the decision of their turn before they are going to do it, and then once they do their decision,
See if you're correct.
and then also question why do you think that they do something else, and really, because I think only if you understand the why, you're actually going to be able to replicate good decisions.
Yeah, there's
And I guess also if you don't know why, then you could also just ask them if they're streaming.
Yeah, just be sure to backseat them. And there's this concept called the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. Effectively, you can get 80% proficiency or 20% of the work. That's what the pattern recognition would be, just like copying what they do. And the last 20% takes the 80% of the work. And that's kind of where that would come in, where you sort of try to understand what goes in behind the lines. But you will get super far, I believe, by just watching people that are really good and have consistent results, just watching what they do, and like able to just develop these sort of, you'll get these solid fundamentals from that, even if you don't understand the theory behind it. It's absolutely the way that I try to level up the quickest, because a lot of people will go to these games and try to reinvent the wheel by themselves, and that's by far the slowest way.
All right, we're on to the main topic now. Brendan,
Yep.
take it away with your favorite deck remains.
Yeah.
It has not died all of a sudden.
I know. I feel like I'm gonna get, like, I don't know, like I have to repent or something because I talked down on it. But anyway, we're gonna talk about the set 4 metagame as we lead into Chicago, which is happening this weekend, really happening the day after this video releases. And Moyne and I are going to be doing a tier list as well. All these lists are taken from the Pact tournament. This is the top 16. There will be a link to that in the description. So check that out if you want to follow along with the list. First, I'm going to be talking about Ruby Amethyst. Ruby Amethyst is pretty good. Could be a result of some decks being pretty clunky, decks being dynamic, trying to respond to each other. My sample size isn't huge, but against Green Steel in particular, I'm doing really well. And I found that Green Steel without Prince John is a much better matchup for Ruby Amethyst than it was in the past. You still have pesky things to deal with, like you have to deal with the early curves. You need to answer the Bucky, and then you got to be ready to answer the beast that comes down on 5, which is it's a tall order, but I think you can do it. I think Ruby Amethyst's matchup into Ruby Sapphire is so much better than it was in set 3. We talked about it already. 1-drop, 2-drop Flynn, 3-drop, honestly, whatever, but 3-drop Sisu, 4-drop Castle. Your Ruby Sapphire opponent has got to have a lot of things going for them if they're going to deal with that. I believe the worst matchup for this deck is probably Blue Steel. Haven't faced it yet, but traditionally that's what it is. And I can't imagine that matchup is much, much, much better at this point, especially when they're teching in all the earlier removal for Diablo, which will also hit your Flynns. The Ruby Amethyst Mirror is probably miserable like at this point, because the way that Flynn works as an on the play sort of character, you get so much more equity with it on the play. Because if you match your opponent's curve, Flynn into Sisu, you being on the draw, you're pretty much screwed. Your opponent's going to farm you with the Flynn. So that's kind of rough. And I wonder if we'll see some tech choices make it into Ruby Amethyst as a result. But the deck is very powerful. Additions to the deck from set 4 are the Flynn Rider that gains 3 lore if you have a character with higher attack, the 3-cost Inkable Sisu. Some of these 4-cost Madrigals, the ones that cantrip if your opponent has an exerted character, 4 Brawls to deal with Diablo, and then some of these Undisputed. What is the name of this card? It's like Undisputed.
Be King Undisputed.
Just 1-for-1 Edict removal to deal with some ward threats. And about 2 Be Prepared. That's flexible. So it's very similar to the set 3 deck. I think it got some decent upgrades, and its ability to be an aggressive deck, I think the equity of that has increased drastically, which was already something that Ruby Amethyst was doing very well, being able to pivot between the control game plan and the aggressive game plan. I think its equity to have that aggressive game plan has gone up significantly. Right now, after the testing we've done, after the Pixelborn I've played, I'm going to say that for as long as I can now, this has landed as my favorite deck right now.
The I will say, yeah, it seems like this deck on the play is disgusting. Because the amount of equity you gain, so you go 1-drop, you go 2-drop Flynn, you go 3-drop Sisu, which should be like pretty big. And then like this kind of reminds me of the whole thing that you're doing with the rabbit and the bee king undisputed. It was the same in the Amethyst steel deck that I played last set. So like if you went first, you could nearly guarantee if you get your 4 drop down, you can just sing Zeus and remove something pretty easily. So I know bee king undisputed is a little bit differently, but I even had like Ruby Amethyst players against me doing like Lady Tremaine to kill my Bucky, and then Lady Tremaine to kill like my Prince John, and then sing Bee King Undisputed to get rid of the Bucky and stuff like that. So this deck seems like it could do some pretty powerful things. And a lot of the versions I played so far, they didn't seem as optimized as this. So the inclusions I see in here in terms of offset 4 cards, I think I'm pretty excited to see them in the list. Moin, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think the deck still loses to Emerald Steel, and if that's the case, then it loses to 2 of the big 4.
Yeah.
And that would be rough. So it's really for me, it's really, can you be able to make Emerald Steel a close matchup for this deck to really have a spot like near the top of these 4 decks? Because I still think that the Emerald Steel checks you for so much removal with the Diablo and Beast that it's like super easy to miss out on one of them. Yeah, that I think they still largely come out on top. There's the option to tech for the Diablo a little bit with the Peter Pan Shadow Finder. That's an option. The King Undisputed helps you a little bit.
The more I think about the Bee King Undisputed though as well, though, is that 2-drop Ursula is because it's an uninkable card and you're trying to hold it for the appropriate time. I think the Ursula deals with that really, really well as well. So yeah, I'd say the matchup is close. I think the castles probably help out in the matchup a lot because from playing green steel, I mean that's been the toughest thing. I often had to I might have used like an Ursula to clear the board, and I literally had to swing every single one of my characters into a castle. And I mean, like, exert my Bucky, exert my Prince John to perfectly clear off the castle. So that sucks a little bit. So that's probably the best thing that the deck did against me, at least. So yeah,
it might. So Flynn Rider and Sisu are great, and I mean that. But still, Castle might be the best card of the new set. It's just all the decks have gotten
the best card of the new set.
Yeah. Just because it's gotten so much better. Because so the Ruby Sapphire had to stabilize the board occasionally with Scar, dealing 6 damage plus killing or banishing some characters. And they're no longer playing Scar. Emerald Steel has always been bad against this. Sapphire Steel is right now often not playing item, not playing location removal, and they were always inherently bad against Castle. So I think Castle, it's the same card, but it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Although that being said, I will say for Castle, maybe there's that weird thing of if you leave the Diablo up, right, and then they do Castle and they draw a few cards, and then you just draw cards as well off the Diablo. This is just insane. But I don't know how often that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might just opt to not draw the card because it's a May trigger, and the Diablo is just a must answer. Like, it's just.
No, but I think you will if you right now Diablo sticks and you have draw triggers. I think they're still generally more beneficial to you than to them, because also you still need to find an answer. So I feel like both of you drawing a card is probably better than that. Not.
Yeah, one thing I messed up, and it's not something that's going to happen too often, but for some reason in my head, I remember I was playing as a Ruby Amethyst and they had a rabbit out on board. It was my turn and I had an exerted Diablo, and they actually had to call out Judge on me for this because I was just an idiot. And I killed that rabbit, and they drew a card, and I drew a card with my Diablo. But Diablo, it's only on your opponent's turn when the card is exerted that you can draw a card. So in my head, I just thought, oh, Diablo is just absolutely so busted that whenever my opponent draws a card, be that on my turn or on their turn, I'll get a card as well. So I got a big warning for that, I will say. But yeah, card is still very, very, very good.
Yeah. I'll have to test more into green steel. I rolled a lot of green steel on ladder, so we'll see. It just felt like.
Can I ask Brendan? Sorry to interrupt. Are all these decks taken from the pack tournament?
Yeah, they're all taken from the pack tournament. And I was playing card for card the Ruby Amethyst list that shows up first there.
This is day 9,000 of Brendan overvaluing Ruby Amethyst because he keeps crushing everyone on ladder.
Overvaluing.
No, it's always been good, but I feel like it's at least there was always some small bias because you've been winning every matchup on ladder.
Yep. But hey, one game goes different. ATL Ruby Amethyst champion right here. Got serialized Mickey. I was one off.
As soon as Ruby Amethyst goes to the dumps, Brennan will be like, I remember back in my day when this deck was good.
Hey, I said that at week 1 of this set. That's why I feel like I've been a bit blasphemous. I'm not going to lie. I did toss between blue-red, blue-steel, and green-steel. And I was getting a little depressed. Like I was like, oh shit. I was just not feeling it, to be honest. Particularly, I was not enjoying my matchups into green steel, and then I just don't like playing green steel. It's probably a deck I need to practice a bit more. But then I found my Lord and Savior Ruby Amethyst, and I was like, dude, this set is great. This is awesome. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe overrating Ruby Amethyst. I do love blue-red. We can go into that next. I think blue-red is a fantastic deck. It's a deck that Moyne has already hit rank with twice. In this season. Did get a lot of upgrades, shored up its aggressive weakness in the set. And yeah, I mean, the deck just is more powerful. A lot of the builds, there's some differences made with the build. I think your build was not playing Inkable Sisu. I do believe Inkable Sisu in blue-red would increase your equity against the Ruby Amethyst matchup. Moyne, almost probably significantly right, because not only is it insulating you against the Flynn, potentially, but is also giving you more equity to clear that castle. And it's not like Ruby Amethyst can remove your 3-cost Inkable Sisu. Yeah.
So, there's some interesting deck building decisions to be made there. Sisu is like an awesome card. It's only 3-cost characters are awkward curve-wise for the deck, but nevertheless, it might still find its way into Ruby Sapphire builds. And then it's like the late game removal. How many Sisus, how many B-Prep do you play, how many Icebergs do you play? I think the uninkable Sisu is pretty bad. I don't think it really warrants the uninkable slot. And then even in the top cut, I've seen some people like not have 4 copies of How Far I'll Go or something. I think like 4 Develop Your Brain, 1 Jump Ahead, How Far I'll Go, Grammatada are like absolutely core to how the deck functions and shouldn't be taken out just because you want to fit in some extra card. But yeah, the deck, it has the answers for Diablo early, but it can also basically it has these huge tempo swings in the late game with the Sisus, where now it can not just stabilize the board, but like it's quicker in setting up its own game plan when it wipes the board with the 8-cost Sisu.
Yeah, I was really not having a lot of fun in the blue-red mirrors. Because it was just like, okay, I draw my 2 cards of Flaversham, you kill my Flaversham, you play your Flaversham, you get your 2 cards, I kill your Flaversham, and then we both like kind of just like start really struggling for card draw, and then whoever gets the Tamatoa first is just absolutely juicing. That was my limited experience with it, and I was kind of getting a little bit tilted. I just have to play it more, to be honest. But yeah, I actually played this at locals. I played a blue-red at locals, and I did super well. I beat everything except for Red Fossa, which, oh my god, I lost like we finished so fast and we decided to play like 5-6 games. I won 1 out of 6 or something. Like I got farmed by Red Fossa. It was so bad. It was such a rough matchup for me.
I played against that deck as well over the weekend, and game 1, oh my god, they wiped me. They wiped me game 1, and the only reason I got it back on the other 2 games was I think I had one of the games I opened with double Bucky, which was just insane, and then the other game, they just didn't draw their appropriate cards, but that deck got a lot more powerful.
That deck is insanely more powerful.
I say
more cards than blue-red. It's like what?
Yeah, I say that, but also I don't think. I mean, listen, you guys are going to be doing a tier list video soon, so you will be ranking that somewhere.
Probably throwing in B tier just because of results or something. I don't know. The deck looks really powerful. I just haven't played the deck myself, so I've only seen it from the blue-red perspective. So maybe the deck is just too weak against like green steel. And if you have a deck that's super weak against green steel, I think you're going to be in a tough spot. For Chicago, I think green steel would probably be the most represented deck at Chicago. It's just really strong right now, to be honest.
So what's the deck to beat green steel right now? If you were bringing the deck to beat it, what would you play?
I think that blue-red can beat it. I don't enjoy playing the blue-red side because I feel like it feels pretty swingy. It feels like I need multiple different kind of answers. I need the answer to the Diablo. I need answers. I need an answer to the turn 5 beast, but I also need to be able to ramp fast enough to get there. Once I get out ahead, I feel okay. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like it can be a bit rough. Again, this is small sample size and bias, but I found that my Ruby Amethyst matchup was feeling okay into green steel because I had quite a bit of answers for the Diablo. I'm no longer getting punished for drawing. Like previously against Green Steel, you would opt to not draw because the Prince draw was accruing too much value for the Green Steel player. Now it feels like I can prioritize drawing as the Ruby Amethyst player and attrition my Green Steel opponent out. Nevertheless, also on the play, sometimes you can aggro them with things like Flint Rider, which is crazy. But it does feel like the matchup, in my opinion, is better. Castle, again, is still powerful. Does feel like I think it feels better than set 3. Set 3, I was really not a fan of it as Ruby Amethyst.
I always thought Ruby Amethyst was like slightly favored in set 3, and I don't think it's the case anymore. But I think both Sapphire decks actually have really close matchups against Emerald Steel too.
Yeah. Let's talk about Blue Steel.
Yeah, let's talk about Sapphire Steel.
Yeah, I want to talk about Green Steel last because it's just I think it's I think it's probably like the deck in the format, but also it's just being built in so many different ways. A lot of these other decks aren't. Blue Steel, we talked about it at the beginning of the pod, how it's kind of flipped its matchup against Blue Red because of those Orioles. The deck is also, it plays a lot differently. It's like kind of combo-esque. It's crazy the amount of draw you can do in that deck, and you can just absolutely kind of do these like endgame combos with Tamatoa to gain insane amounts of lore like super fast. It's a really fun deck to play. Just surprisingly, what took me off the deck is I found my Green Steel matchup to be bad. Like I was really struggling against Green Steel, and that's what took me off of the Blue Steel deck, to be honest.
I mean, Moyen, you have a lot of experience against that deck, right? From the weekend.
Initially, people, I think it was the idea of this deck was just, oh wait, I can Sapphire Steel used to be good against Emerald Steel, and I can play Babooms just for answer the Diablos. Maybe if you fire the cannons, I can play while vamping. I'm chilling, and I have 8 popsicles. But I've also, I think it needs more testing. But I've also felt like it can struggle against Emerald Steel when the Robin Hoods come out. It's like it's no longer this type of deck that just overwhelms the board with characters. Also, after ramping in Holy World, it just overwhelms the board with like characters in Cogsworth. It's a little more like it plays a little bit more removal and a little bit more items. So it's like it can quest quicker with the Aerials and Tamatoas that it plays now and then. So it can like get to 20 lore once it's set up very, very quickly. But it contests the board a little bit less. It plays a little bit fewer characters.
Yeah. This gives my vote for funnest deck in the format right now, depending on its build. But I've done some absolutely insane things, like cantripping through my entire deck and like gaining like 10 plus lore to win on my only out of like a dime that was 6 cards deep or something. It's crazy.
I've heard of this really. I don't like. I just heard of apparently some guy did it really well with this really wacky build of Blue Steel, and from the sounds of it, I don't think I want to test it, but if for some reason it does, because this build sounds like it's way too combo heavy to actually like make it pop off. But I suppose if you guys have played the deck a little bit more, maybe you'll agree or disagree. So basically, they played a lot of cards that traditionally aren't in the Blue Steel. They played the 5-cost Sapphire Tinkerbell that reads when one of your items is banished, it goes into your Inkwell face down and exerted. They played the 7-cost Grammatala, which gains a lore when a card goes into your Inkwell. And then they also played, I don't even know what the card's called. It's like I'll find them and break them or something like that. I don't know. It's 4-cost Steel Inkable Song that when you sing it, it banishes all items. So the idea is that you had like a bunch of like popsicles, fortispheres, and all this type of stuff, and then like, all that goes to your Inkwell, and you just gain a lot of stuff. It sounds way too memey for me, but I don't know. Like maybe if someone had success with it, I don't know to what level, to what degree they had success with it. But
success
what is success? Yeah. But
that sounds like a lot of fun. I think one of the
yeah, it sounds like fun, but I don't know how competitive it sounds. Right.
But one of the big strengths of the deck is now that it doesn't need to gain that much lore early. If you gain like 5-ish lore early, and then you just play area, use the dime on it, you're at 10, and decks really.
And once you're at that 10, and there's an aerial on the board and they have a dime, holy shit, you just lose the game. If you're not winning the game in that turn, you've lost.
Yeah, you're just threatening that 20 super quickly. But I just want to point out that this is also a deck where builds are very far away from optimize. Okay, I don't want to. It's not that they're that far away from optimize. It's just like there's a lot of different builds running around. In Thea's event, there was also a few that weren't playing Whole New World at all, and then that they were just opting to even play the Great Stone Dragon, the 3-cost item to ink, and then maybe getting some card draw of Beast, because you have so many items now that like you're less reliant on it. There were some others that still opted to play the Whole New World and the 4 Quill to just, even if you have that card draw, to just ink your entire hand, get in your hand, and really go off. There's a few Qianpos that see play now, just as the biggest body to sing 5-cost songs that still has an effect after it's sung the song, because at least it gives it has bodyguard. One Jump Ahead is making somewhat of a return, because even post One Jump Ahead, the few spare inks you're very good at using with the 8 1-cost items. Develop Your Brain has largely been cut because you have less spare ink to use if you have more 1-cost items that you can fit into these slots. I think it's an extremely interesting deck to play, but also to build. People are not sure whether to play item removal or which one to play. There's some Beast hard-headed, there's some Bengers running around. It's a deck that intrigues me a lot.
Yeah, I like the McDuck Manor inclusion in some of them as well, because we just talked about how I do think the location power has just increased dramatically this set, because I feel like there's so many decks that don't really answer it, and it's that type of card like the 3-cost inkable Sisu that can help into the locations. But I think they've definitely increased. As we're kind of moving on to Green Steel as well, there's a location that's in one of the decks that I do want your guys' opinions on, because it honestly, when I played it in Sealed or whatever, it seemed pretty good, but I don't know how well it fits into this Green Steel package.
Yeah.
But this is a Hidden Cove, right?
Yeah, and you can read it out, but I'll tell you some of the use cases of it. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so Hidden Cove is 1-cost inkable location. It costs 1 to move a character there, has 6 willpower, and it basically gives any character there +1/+1.
Yeah, so what does +1/+1 do? It dodges all the Diablo hate, basically. It like takes away all of the ways you're killing Diablo, the Ursulas. It stops your beast from being hit by Medusa. It can be strong. I think that, I don't know if it's going to make the cut eventually, because it can be a little bit clunky, but that card can be a little bit annoying. That being said, I feel like, often, but every time I've encountered this card, it's been so late in the game. It hasn't really been like, the Diablo's coming down a curve and they have to move it on turn 4. It's like, by the time they get there, I'm like, I have access to things like Medusa to deal with the Diablo. I might have access to things like Be Prepared in the game to actually clear that beast. But +1/+1 is nothing to sneeze at. The format's dominated by, not dominated, but the format is largely composed of 2 red decks that are killing things based off their attack power.
Yeah, it sounds like, so like the dream opener is what? So it's Diablo on 1, and then on turn 2 you play Hidden Cove, you shift your Diablo, and then you move the Diablo to, I don't know if that's the dream turn, but against certain decks that literally they have to have Brawl or whatever, or they have to have like a 2 attack thing to kill it. That seems pretty powerful. But like you said, at that stage, maybe you get to your Medusa, but the Diablo is going to stay on the board for at least,
I don't even know
2
how I would
turns?
deal with that. If they did that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would deal with that. I'd be in a really bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like this super I don't know, it's a super interesting inclusion where, yes, you get to play around the Brawl removal for also the Peter Pan Shadowfinder, unfortunately gets hit by that too.
Yeah, he just dies, right?
Yeah, suddenly you can't value trade, he just gets banished. But also you can protect your Bucky from Tinkerbell, but all of these things are somewhat niche, and then I think it might be good, but I'm not completely sure, because the opportunity cost of developing the Cove and moving it there often means you're doing that instead of developing a character, and then only to potentially protect it if they had the removal. And if it is on something like Diablo, yes, it can win you the game, but then also later in the game, it's like a card you don't want to be drawing. So it has this very niche use case that can occasionally win you games. So it's also something that I think we will see how good it actually is, like over the next weeks.
Yeah, Green Steel is a wild deck right now. There's so many different builds. So not only the Cove, but there's Are you playing the Tinkerbells? Are you playing, some people are playing these Jafars? Of course, the Bucky Diablo package is pretty standard, but like, are you still playing Ursula with the Sudden Chills in there as well? Some of these have Tecton removal, I guess, for the mirror. So playing Babooms and Smashes. The Robin Hood package is pretty standard, but Robin Hood with the 1-drop. So you're doing Robin Hood on 1, Bucky on 2, shift Robin Hood on 3, maybe sing something. I've seen a lot of variety between the builds, which is, I guess Blue Steel also has that characteristic where there's a bit of variety between the builds, but a lot of variety in the Green Steel builds, which I think is probably deck to be, which is super interesting because, if we saw X amount into day 2 of Chicago, I think we could see a lot of diversity in the actual deck lists of the Green Steels that do show up. And I don't know what's correct right now.
Yeah, so there's at the start I was playing the Prince John, which most people opt not to play. I think it can be quite good. Even the Pegasus shift is some people are not playing it. I'm not totally convinced it really deserves the slots. What I do really like is I think the Tinkerbell as a big Floodborn to also contest like the later stages of the game, because it's really all you want to be doing after these early turns to just draw into some like mid-sized Floodborns, like Robin Hood Beast, Tinkerbell. Some people even don't play the Ursula and just say, okay, if I can sing Strength or let the Stormage on any of my good Floodborn characters, like I'm happy, but I don't really want to play a 3-cost in this removal heavy meta with all the brawls that doesn't do anything immediately. So that's also one route to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna make y'all put your money where your mouth is. We're gonna start with Kyle. We're gonna go to Moy and one with me. Best deck in the format. Name one deck. You got to pick one. What is it, Kyle?
Green Steel.
Moy.
Wait, no reasoning even.
I mean, you can say it. Reasoning or no reasoning doesn't matter. This is simply, we will hold you accountable and judge your character based off this decision.
So it's not Ruby Amethyst.
Okay, bud.
It's any of the other 3. I'll go with Ruby Sapphire for now.
Okay, goes Ruby Sapphire.
All right, I'm Ruby Amethyst. Let's go with the results biased.
He never goes off it, guys.
Ruby Amethyst's best deck right now. I think that deck's got potential. It's flexible, strong.
I honestly, Brennan, I really hope we keep this meme going like through to like set
what
when
meme?
the deck truly becomes when the deck truly becomes unplayable. I really hope that you're still playing it.
No, I'm not that kind of player. And the deck is not that cool for me to do that. There's been like a couple of decks that I would do that for, but they're combo decks. No, I just think it's a really good deck. So Green Steel. I think Green Steel's a safe pick.
Yep.
Blue Red.
Yeah, but I also think it's a very
No,
like,
I mean, if I was a coward, I would say Green Steel as well.
Yeah, if he wasn't the master of Ruby Amethyst, then,
it's the best deck. All right. Anyway, if you order a t-shirt, you're on the way. Like we said, there's a giveaway going out right now for people who leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That does help us a lot. So if you haven't submitted a review, do it before I get those t-shirts in hand, because I will be drawing a winner for that and shipping it out. The only sizes available are medium, large, and XL. And thank you to everybody that did buy a shirt. It supports us a lot, and we're excited to see people in those shirts at these events. And yeah, there's a video version of this on YouTube at youtube.com/@Podcana podcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. We're at 3,000 subscribers. I think that's new. I don't know if that's new from this week or last week. We've been growing a lot. The podcast has been popping off, which is great. So big thanks to all of you. Again, anything we talk about, links in the description. Twitter's are Brendan APG, Moin_HS, and Kawatech_CG.
Frank on the next episode. Stay tuned.
Frank Carson on the next episode. We'll be talking about a lot of fundamentals and math. And then we're going to ask the question, to 60 cards or not to 60 cards. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.